This is Comic Picks by the Glick.
Hey, I'm your host, Jason Glick.
Hey, Jason, what do you have on tap for us today?
Well, I know we're getting into February and all, but hey, I figured it's time enough to do, like a best of 2024 list. Mainly because, hey, it always takes me a little while to catch up on everything that's, comes in at the end of the year. And and just also just think about just, what was the best and what was the worst. And this is, and on one hand, this year was easier than last year because there was a clear, obvious choice as far as what was the very best of this year. Unlike last year, where it's I could think of other great comics that picking a number one, yeah, that was tough. But this year, no, number one was easy. Everything else after that, that required some sussing out. I mean, I'm sure it's going to look a little weird, compared to any of the other best of lists you've read. But hey, that's how these things go. Anyway, just before we get to the top 10 itself, let's go run a couple honorable mentions. Like Transformers Volume 1 by Daniel Warren Johnson. I mean, I have not, I've heard lots of good things about Transformers comics before this one, but I never actually read any of them before, before this. And, because Daniel Warren Johnson is just a fantastic artist, arguably the best one working in the industry today. And his work here just was absolutely fantastic. And there was also some good solid character and Autobot Decepticon stuff here, seeing Starscream talk about how squishy humans were. That was fun. But it's I guess what kept it off the list was just are we doing anything genuinely new here? No, but it was a lot of fun. And you can expect to see me and John keep doing podcasts about subsequent individual volumes of this series, especially when we get to subsequent volumes, which talk about what happened to Starscream after he got his ass beat in Volume 2. Oh, and just what's going to happen to Megatron in Volume 4. So there you go. Also on the honorable mentions list, Friday by Ed Brubaker and Marcos Martin. This Pay What You Want series that originated on the Panel Syndicate was reprinted in 3 volumes, with the 4th one arriving at in the middle of this year. And it's basically just what if what would happen to Encyclopedia Brown and Sally Kimball as they grew up. And it was good fun. It's and and much as I enjoyed this final volume, it's you kind of got the feeling that he needed a bit more time to expand things out, even though Brubaker says that his initial plan of 6 installments 20 those are 25 pages each, turned out to be a massive 360 page graphic novel between these 3 volumes. Well, yeah, it needed a bit more time, but I still enjoyed it. And then you've also got Human Target by Tom King and Greg Smallwood. This is, I will always prefer the Peter Milligan version of the Human Target as a version of the character who who just gets lost in the people that he's impersonating. I really enjoyed their version, which basically takes a serious but not too serious take on the 80s Justice League and how they and their various interactions. It's and how the title character gets involved with ICE of that team, and how things spiral out from there. And also it deserves an honorable mention just for its really great use of Batman in the 2nd volume of this series. And if you're wondering what makes this use of Batman really special, go read Volume 2 and then you'll see, because it's pretty great. Also, Star Trek Lower Decks, Warp Your Own Way. I really liked the previous miniseries that was done last year from creator Ryan North and artist Chris Finoglio, who also returned for this installment. We get something much different in the sense that this is a choose your own adventure story. It's as Beckett Mariner winds up dying over and over again as part of an evil plot in order to assume control of the USS Cerritos. And there's just so much crazy stuff going on here from finding from the crew, from the crew, just meeting up with Dionysus again to the Captain Freeman basically going, somehow Khan has returned. It's and then just everything is get even more crazy from there, and also crazy involving math, because if you aren't willing to do math through this series, then yeah, you're going to just be reading it over and over again for the rest of your life. So it was really good, and I would have loved to have done a podcast about this, but things just didn't work out about it with Christine, because it just life got in the way, and that's disappointing. But oh well, what you gonna do? So, but yeah, all those are definitely worth reading. But as far as the very best of this year, let's start with number 10, which is Bloodrick from Andrew Kronk, about a warrior named Bloodrick who is going to who's cold and hungry and wants to kill in order to eat again, but he can't because there's a bear who wants to kill him. It's and the bear takes his deer, and now he's going to fight him across the frozen tundra. And yeah, I could keep doing this, but yeah, this was over the top, ridiculous, Conan-esque, barbarian action. But at the same time, though, it knew exactly how silly it was being, and still managed to lean into that. Because while the main story was thoroughly entertaining with Kronk's over the top dialogue and art, also the backup stories featured in the collection were thoroughly entertaining as well. Silly, but it knew how to lean into it, and that was basically the fact that this was promised as Bloodrick's debut miniseries, more of a promise than a threat. I loved it, and I look forward to seeing what Kronk, who of all things that he's doing next, he's doing a G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero, story featuring Roadblock, and it's going to be a silent issue. So yeah, I think that's gonna be reason enough for me to want to read the collected edition when it comes out later this year. Okay, number 9 is Wild's End: Beyond the Sea. Now, Dan Abnett and I.N.J. Colbard did a great 3-volume series with their version of The Wind in the Willows meets The War of the Worlds. And well, I would have liked to have seen them do more with it. I guess life and sales charts just didn't allow for that at the time. But then we get this follow-up miniseries, which basically tells the story of a group of characters who were just out on the ocean doing fishing stuff at the time that the alien invasion went down, and then when they come back, well, now they got to puzzle out what's going on and help work to save whoever's around them at the same time. This was just a really well done, character driven alien invasion story that reminded me how good the series was, how much I'd like to see see it again. I don't know if this is going to it ends with the promise hey, they could follow up on this from here, but I hope they do, but there's no word yet. It's like I said, it's a good continuation that doesn't necessarily require you to read the previous 3 volumes, but at the same time, though, you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't. Okay, so next on the list is probably the messiest pick on this list. That is Immortal X-Men and Rise of the Powers of X by Kieron Gillen. Gillen has been, all of the writers for X, for the current X titles, especially the end of the Krakoan era, have been doing really solid work. I mean, relatively so, but Gillen is first among equals here, and his work, setting up, what was going on in Krakoa with Mr. Sinister, and also the other Sinisters that were basically feeding into the Dominion esque personality that went on to be God, I just chatted here. The superior Sinister personality who just, goddamn, my name the name just completely it's in my mind right now. But just simply telling like this story and giving you like a nice thorough plot line to like to follow here. It's was just really well done. And even though you had to get read all the stuff from Immortal X-Men and Rise of the Powers of X, I mean it seems like a big ask, for your average comic reader, but yeah, it was worth it. And you should damn well do it because I realize that Marvel always asks you, hey, read this comic and also these ones in order to make sense of this one. But this is like the instance where like it all makes it's like where it all makes sense and it all turns out to be worthwhile. The Krakoan era, like did wrap up in messy fashion, but I still enjoyed it, and Gillen's work was a big reason as to that. Continuing on with like superhero trend is Wonder Woman Volume 1 by Tom King and Daniel Sampere, Volume 1 Outlaw. Well, basically, here's a story where an Amazon murders a bunch of dudes in a biker bar, and as a result, gets the U.S. to not just declare war on Paradise Island, but also just just exclude all expel all all of the Amazonians from the U.S. except for Diana, because hey, she's gonna say like no way, hey, or in this case, no thank you, because she knows that something is rotten here, and she's going to get to the bottom of it. This I really like this first volume. I mean, I like the second volume as well, but maybe a little bit less so. But this first volume was great because while a lot of superhero comics love to just grind their heroes down these days, just hey, so they're not doing anything right, and that they're failing against the great odds that get presented against them. King does a great job of just setting up hey, it's like the U.S. is against Paradise Island, and hey, everyone's screwed as a result. But Diana, he gives her so much badass scenes that you just believe that it's still a lot of fun to see her just fight against this overwhelming threat. I mean, that's the thing about superhero comics, is that it's not just it's always fun to see how the characters triumph over impossible odds, and just show they are smarter and more clever than the people arrayed against them. And that's what we get to see in spectacular fashion in this first volume as well. Like I said, I like the second volume as well, but it's this first volume that basically delivers. It's kind of a master class in just how I want to see superhero comics go an impossible threat, but the hero powers, or in this case heroine, powers through as a result of their superior strength and cunning. So there you go. But now we're going to something completely different, and that's Star Trek Defiant Volume 2. This is the year that I actually started reading Star Trek comics on a regular basis, and I generally really enjoyed them. From Jackson Kelly and Colin Lanzig's Star Trek series, which is hey, a lot of good quality Star Trek fanfic, because they've got their own Return of Benjamin Sisko, and how that's going to play out against against all the godlike beings in the Trek universe, as culminating in the Data Blood crossover event. But for me though, it's I really enjoyed Christopher Cantwell and Angel Unzueta's take on this series. And even though Unzueta didn't illustrate the majority of illustrate any of Defiant, Defiant did a really good job in dismantling a certain perspective on the series, the idea that hey, Worf and the crew of the Defiant were now basically set up as bounty hunters acting under the auspices of the Federation. It's hey, that's cool, man. It's they're just gonna be able to do whatever they want. It's with only secret backing by the Federation, man. This is gonna be cool. And well, he did a good job of illustrating just how this work can be demeaning, and how the Federation, even if their plots are for the greater good, they're just very deceptive and not very honorable in the least. it's like I was just surprised at just how he upended my expectations over the course of the issues collected here, and how they played off of a lot of episodes of like Star Trek the original series, and especially the next generation as well. And also I think that the fact that he did this in the course of like single issue like stories is even better, because like he did manage to do like a solid story about just how how everyone was like getting slowly demoralized over this bounty hunter work that the Federation had saddled them with, but but also just but also just getting them like like I don't know where I was going here, but it was but but the stories he was telling were really solid, and did a good job like showing how everyone was getting demoralized with this work, and like how they're going to like eventually like go their own separate ways, and also doing a really solid annual story involving Scylla, the Romulan daughter of Tasha Yar, who it's like who well it's like you find out just exactly how Tasha Yar died in this timeline after the events of yesterday's Enterprise, which I think is a really solid retcon of of what we know about that death. But we'll see if if anyone else from Trek picks up on that. But yeah, it's like I really enjoyed this, and yeah, even if Volume 3 wasn't quite as good as Volume 2, it's like it was. I still thoroughly enjoyed. I was so surprised about how much I enjoyed this, and how much I enjoyed what Cantwell was doing here. All right, now moving to the top 5, we've got Kaguya-sama, Love is War, which, hey, this is like the gold standard for romantic comedies, like for me, because as much as it spends its time just completely tearing down the cliches of the drama, which are many and numerous, it also just builds a really beautiful love story between its primary protagonists, Yuki Shirogane, it's like in Kaguya Shinomiya. It is glorious, it is beautiful, and this series where it delivers its like a main the climax to its main storyline in 2 volumes before the series wraps up, and that's not a problem, because in those final 2 volumes we get to go back to the great, glorious, fun and goofy romantic comedy. It's like antics that it's like that the series delivered on a regular basis before then. And really, you needed 2 volumes in order to give a proper wrap up for all of the characters in the story, because they all deserved um it's like to they all deserve their happy endings. It's like from Chika Fujiwara to Ishigami to Ino, like everyone, they deserved it, and it was great to see it wrapped up here. Also, seeing things wrapped up really well was my number 4 pick, Golden Kamui, story of Mortal Sugimoto and his Ainu companion, Serpa. It's like they finally found the missing Ainu gold in the it's like in the in the final volumes, and then they had to fight their way out from all of the people who wanted to take it from them. And they just didn't do this in a pure action, not just in a pure action movie fashion, but also in just some goofy ass comedy as well. Because those rereading this series, it is just like a glorious absurdist epic that is it can be fate face meltingly serious at one point, but also just rip roaringly funny the next. It's like and it all feels like it works because the series contains multitudes, and how in its tones, just how it gets everything to play out incredibly well. It's like I loved it, and the only reason it's not ranked higher is because, well, like mangaka Satoru Noda just couldn't bring himself to kill his darlings as much as he should have, given how things were playing out at the end. So there you go. But from a series that delivers like mostly satisfying finale to a series that implies like, hey, things are going to be great going forward. We've got Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 1 by Jonathan Hickman, Marco Cicchetto, and David Messina. Volume 1, Married with Children. This is my number 3 pick, and this is the like first of it's like, and Hickman had already written the introductory like ultimate issues because he's got a big master plan for this series, and it's going to be like like pretty epic and all. But at the same time, like wondering how is like Spider-Man a character who's like down to earth and just not really like like an epic type character. How is he going to deal with all this? Well, by making him an adult who has a happy marriage with Mary Jane and their 2 kids, and by God, he's actually on good terms with J. Jonah Jameson. But at the same time, though, he's also got this like feeling that like, hey, I was meant for greater things. So what's happening here? Well, like Hickman has an answer, and he just does a great job in setting into like like finding like ways to tweak the Spider-Man mythos and just find like nice subtle differences from what we know of Spider-Man to just this version of the character. I mean, it's like it's a lot of fun. I mean, just seeing Jonah Jameson it's like like start out with a try to strike out on a new news adventure with a certain character who I still don't think is worth spoiling if you haven't read this first volume, because it's just that good of a reveal that like, it's like they could have done like like a series about these 2 characters, and I would have like like been there for that. But it's like seeing Peter like slowly grow into like the Spider-Man we know and love is fantastic, and also seeing like hey, seeing him like meet up with Harry Osborn in a way that's like it's unique to like what we have seen before, and just also who finally delivers that with great power comes great responsibility line that you had to bring it in here at some point, but at the same time though like Hickman knows you gotta do it in a way that's doing unique, and all that's what this volume is. I loved it, and it's the shining light of the ultimate imprint for this like for this era. And so moving on to my number 2 pick. Well, I don't know, it's like it might have been, if everyone's trying to like guess this based on like like rereading anything that I read from the blog, it might have been hard, but I'm giving it to Coda False Dawns, the follow-up miniseries to Simon Spurrier and Matthias Bergara's like great series about a bard with an orcish wife, and how they try to make their like make their lives work in a world that's like that's it's not quite post-apocalyptic, but just it's like just it's a fantasy world where things just aren't as good as they were before. Now, Coda didn't need a sequel. It's like, I mean, like, and argue so that like the like Spurrier and Bergara trying to deliver, like trying to like work another miniseries out of this, like is arguably a disservice to that original miniseries. But that being said, like I don't care, because this is really goddamn good. It's like you got our main characters like it's like like doing their own thing with a bard, like like trying to find his like lost unicorn character, and his orcish wife, just like dealing with like her violent urges as well. But as much as you think that this is a series where it's going to like bring them into conflict at the end, because that's how things go. Well, no. In fact, like they eventually they meet back up at the end of the second issue, and they spend the rest of the series just trying to work out how they're going to it's like how they're going to like make their lives work, particularly when you've got like charlatans on both sides of their respective quests, trying to like dupe the people. And yeah, this is a series that is also talking about the world as we know it, but unlike a lot of those series that like, hey, it's like we're actually talking about like current events and all. This is a series that actually like posits some some answers to how we deal with things. And no, they're not easy, or I mean even like unworkable answers, but they are answers. And I still like seeing how Spurrier goes about like implementing them here. And I like how like the how in the end it ultimately does require the characters like to compromise just a bit of their principles in order to do so, but it does so in a way that is surprising. It's like and like it's like and compelling to read as well. I really enjoyed it, and I was like, it serves like the second spot, just simply because you're doing a story about the world as we know it, but doing it in a way that doesn't feel insufferable or annoying. So there you go. But come to the top pick, and well, if you've been paying attention to anything I've been reading or talking about over the past few years, then this should not surprise you in the very least, because my number one pick for the best comic of this year is Delicious in Dungeon. This has been like the best series I've been reading for years now. Just not just because it's like because it started out, hey, it could be just like a gimmick series about like these adventurers, they're eating like the monsters they encounter in the dungeons. And like, hey, it's just like, what food are they gonna come across this week? Are they gonna make dungeon ice cream? Hey, yeah, they are. But eventually, like, like like the cooking becomes less of a gimmick and more of like a vehicle for world building and characterization. It's like everything that you learn from from these characters and like the food they eat like tells you more about them, more about the world they inhabit, and like how they're going to like progress as well. So when Marcel finally breaks bad, it's like late in the series it makes perfect sense. And the final revelation of like what the wing line is up to, it's beautiful, and is especially is how he's finally defeated by Laios, who shows you that yes, writing in the margins yeah, can save your life if you do it right. And in the end, this is a series that also got like a full volume of epilogue, because hey, you need to know just what was going to happen to these characters. You need to know that they're going to be all right. And I was just like overjoyed to see how things turned out, and it was beautiful. It's like it was like interesting, those thoroughly satisfying, not just to read these things initially on scanlations, because yeah, I couldn't wait for it, but also just like reread them when they're finally published in English legitimately, and just like enjoy it all over again, and realize that yes, this was a beautiful finale to a beautiful series, and now I've got to figure out what is the current best series I'm reading, like because now Delicious in Dungeon is over, and I am sad, but at the same time though, I'm glad that it ended on a it's like as well as it did. It's like, and it deserves this top spot for that. And in case anyone's wondering, best series I'm currently reading is probably Monstrous. So there you go. All right, so yeah, you've got the best of this year, but what about the absolute worst? Well, um, in if I had been reading this stuff as it come out, there's nothing that's going to trap the grand trash like masterpiece that is Golden Boy. Because my God, like I thought that like I could at least would be at least reading something that was like at least entertainingly awful, but no, this was just like mind-numbingly terrible and painful to read, and also just a great disservice to like the fantastic OVA series that everyone of my age like grew up like hearing about and sharing good things about. But then you read the manga and it's like, oh shit, the anime is like the best versions. Don't read the manga. But then you've also got like other series that are like that would call themselves like tributes to the power of imagination, like Simon Kudransky's Something Epic, but they're just like just like like really kind of boring, and just like hey, remember this thing, like hey, this is cool, right? No, Like it was kind of annoying and pretentious, and I did not care for it at all. Same goes for Tony Daniels' Edenwood, and he, even though he's done like great work like as an artist on like lots of DC titles, and also Scott Snyder's Noctera, Edenwood was just like a series that thought it had a lot of like like interesting fantasy pretensions, but it was just trying to play it being like a ultra violent like berserk type mature reader series, but just didn't have like the same level of like storytelling chops to pull it off. Um, Joe Casey and Ryan Quackenbush's Junior Baker the Righteous Faker was a misguided and confusing follow up to a series that I remember liking back in the day that I still have the hardcover for, but just its follow up just did not do anything for me, and just like made me wonder like what was even the point of this in the first place. Also, there's Just League versus Godzilla versus Kong, which I'll admit probably wasn't terrible, but just the fact that it was merely competent, or if that at least, when you realize that hey, it's like a series called Just League versus Godzilla versus Kong shouldn't be just competent. It should be just like amazingly insane, or just like so goddamn terrible that like you just can't that like like its awfulness, it should be so great in its awfulness that it should preclude me like considering it for its for, like for this kind of list. But there you go. And then there's Ultimate X-Men, which on one hand, I guess maybe I'm being a bit too hard on it, because I've got my opinion of like what an X-Men comic should be, and this was not it. I mean, if they hadn't called it Ultimate X-Men, I probably wouldn't even be considering including it on this list. But they did call it Ultimate X-Men, and that just did not work. Did not work here. It just did not have like any of the like stuff that I want to see from an X-Men comic, and it didn't do anything on its own terms. It's basic, very basic story of Japanese bullying. Um, like didn't offer anything new as far as I was concerned. It was boring. And also, speaking of other revivals, Matthew Rosenberg and Steven Segovia and other people's work on Wildcats was just wow. Like I was hoping that Rosenberg would bring some of this smart ass irreverence to it's like to Image's former to Jim Lee's former premier super team, but nope. It's like I mean there was the occasionally like funny bit, but at the same time though it was just really confusing. It's like really boring, and just didn't seem to have like a lot of good focus as well. It's like I mean the initial like storyline talking about Grifter just being like a dumbass, like like undercover private investigator type was cute, but everything after that was just oh man, it's like I just felt like I was just like grinding like through just like boring ass stuff, like to get to it, and to the point where like hey, I just figured I'm just gonna like sell this book like as is. But as far as like worst of the worst, well, Justice League versus the Legion of Superheroes, simply because um Brian Michael Bendis's and Scott Godlewski's like tale of like like the writers two super teams of the DC universe like meeting, and then just not doing anything of like just like lots of talking, lots of pondering, lots of like there's no goddamn point to the series other than the fact that hey, Bendis was given like 6 issues to wrap up whatever he was doing with both of them, and just decided to have them like stand around talking and say, "Oh, hey, it was Vandal Savage all along." God damn, it's like it was terrible, and it's like and just like I mean, like, I'm not saying that Bendis' entire time in the DCU was a waste of our time and effort, but man, like it was thoroughly disappointing, and that's why Justice League versus Legion of Superheroes gets my vote as like the worst of it. So, but it's like hey, that's the that's like like the worst of this year. But hey, there's still plenty of stuff to look forward to next year because hey, we've got Mob Psycho 100 finally wrapping up. It's like a dark horse. We've got a promising new like event series at Marvel with with One World Under Doom as Ryan North, like the talent I think was like initially too quirky to ever get an event series. Actually doing an event series, I'm looking forward to seeing him hopefully knock it out of the park. As I'm seeing like whatever Marvel does with their Godzilla versus one shots as well, because hey, if nothing else, the artists they've attached to each of these one shots so far sound like they're going to be like fantastic from a visual perspective. Hopefully, like a lot better looking than we got from Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong. Also, looking forward to seeing what DC does with their Absolute comics because they've been like sales and critical successes so far. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing how they're it's like how it's like how they read in collected editions, like all of them. Like I mean, of course, Absolute Superman, like Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, but also definitely we're seeing how Martian Manhunter and Green Lantern like turn out as well. It's like, and also look forward to seeing like how Denise Camp handles like Ultimates over at Marvel because dude did not impress me with 20th Century Man, but I did like his like Children of the Vault miniseries, and I'm really kind of curious to see like what he does with this like with this new superhero series as well because IGN seemed to really like it too, and also gonna keep following some scanlated titles at some point because I would like to talk about like Innocent Rouge and Billy Batten proper simply because hey I need to make up for like being lazy ass and talking about Golden Boy last year. God, that was a mistake. And also like wanting to talk about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Steel Ball Run when it gets its proper English debut because wow, Stone Ocean is very very uneven, and I can kind of see why Hirohiko Araki wanted to do something different with this next series. And also, I'm going to be talking about like Q Hayashida's Dorohedoro at some point, simply because there's a new anime series coming out for it next year, and I also just finished reading like all 23 volumes of this series, with the final volume coming as I was before I recorded this podcast today. So that should tell you my priorities were and all. But that's it. So like plenty of good comics here, and very much looking forward to seeing what 2025 holds in store because even if the comics industry is going to be completely screwed by current events, I don't know. I still think the comics medium is going to survive. It'll just be weirder, stranger, and hopefully cheaper, like going forward. At least,
That'll definitely survive.
yep, that's what
So,
I hope.
so do you know what you're going to be talking about next time?
Oh well, we still got stuff from last year to finish talking about, and
Sweet.
that's gonna start with Darth Vader by Greg Pak. So like, hey, it's twice as long as any previous Darth Vader series at Marvel. Does that mean it's twice as good? Nope, but we'll see how that goes.
All right. We'll catch you next time on Comic Picks by the Glicks, everybody.
Laters.